The ship moved through the darkness of space like a small fish swimming toward a giant whale. Admiral stood near the window of the human vessel and watched the Galactic Council station grow larger and larger. It was a massive structure, bigger than any city on Earth. Lights covered every part of it, and thousands of ships flew around it like insects around a lamp. "It is bigger than I expected," said Commander. She stood next to him with her arms crossed. Her face showed no emotion but knew she was nervous. They both were. "The Council has been building it for 10,000 years, replied. "Every species that joins them adds something new to it." The communication screen lit up. A voice spoke in a strange language, but the translation device turned it into words they could understand. "Human vessel, you will dock at port 712. Do not deviate from the path. Do not activate any weapons. Welcome to the heart of the galaxy." "Looked at friendly," he said with a small smile. "Very friendly," she replied without smiling at all. Their ship docked 20 minutes later. The airlock opened with a hiss and stepped out first. He wore his formal uniform, dark blue with gold buttons, followed him, wearing the same. Behind them came their small team of 4 other officers, 6 humans in total. That was all Earth had sent to this historic meeting. A tall creature waited for them. It had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that were completely black. It wore robes made of some shiny material that changed color when it moved. "I am called," the creature said. "I will take you to the council chamber. Please follow me and do not touch anything." Nodded politely. "Thank you, we are honored to be here." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Honor is for those who have earned it. You are new. You have earned nothing yet." His jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Put a hand on her arm briefly. "Stay calm," the gesture said. They followed through long hallways filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some walked on 2 legs, some walked on 4 or 6 or more. Some floated in the air. Some moved in ways that could not understand at all. Every alien they passed stopped to stare at the humans. Whispers followed them like shadows. "They have never seen humans before," explained without looking back. "Your species is very young, very small, very weak. The Council is curious about you." "We may be young," said calmly, "but we learn fast." Made that strange laughing sound again, but did not reply. The council chamber was enormous. It was a circular room with seats rising up on all sides like a stadium. Hundreds of different species sat in those seats, all looking down at the center. And in the center stood a platform where the humans were led. Felt like an animal in a zoo. Every eye was on them. Every creature was judging them. At the highest point of the chamber sat 5 beings on large thrones. These were the High Council, the leaders of the entire galaxy. The one in the middle was called, had studied files about him, belonged to a species that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. His skin was blue, his body was thin and long, and his head had no hair. 2 small horns grew from his forehead. "Humans," said, his voice echoed through the entire chamber. "You have traveled far to stand before us. Do you know why you are here?" Stepped forward. "We were invited to discuss joining the Galactic Council." "Correct," said. "Your species discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. You have built colonies on 12 planets. You have shown that you are capable of growth. The Council has decided to offer you membership." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many aliens nodded their heads or made gestures of approval. Felt hope rise in his chest. "We are grateful for this opportunity. Earth has long dreamed of being part of the galactic community." "Of course you have," said. "Every species dreams of it, but you must understand what membership means." A screen appeared in the air in front of. Words and images scrolled across it. He read them carefully, moved closer to read them too. The other officers gathered around. The more they read, the colder his blood became. Membership meant humans would provide workers for council projects. Humans would mine resources from their own planets and give 80% to the council. Humans would send soldiers to fight in council wars. Humans would follow all council laws without question. In return, humans would receive protection from outside threats. They would be allowed to trade with other species. They would have access to some council technology. But humans would have no vote in council decisions. No human could hold any position of power. No human could own property outside of Earth's solar system. For the first 500 years, humans would be classified as a developing species with limited rights. Looked up from the screen. "This is not partnership," he said. His voice was steady, but anger burned inside him. "This is slavery with extra steps." The chamber went silent. No one had expected the human to speak like that. Leaned forward. His black eyes seemed to pierce through. "You misunderstand. This is how all new species begin. You must prove yourselves worthy before you can earn greater rights. This is the way it has always been." "For how long?" asked. She had stepped forward to stand next to. "How long do we remain servants before we become equals?" "That depends on your species," replied. "Some have earned full membership in 300 years. Some have taken 2,000. Some never earn it at all." Looked around the chamber. He saw many species watching them. Some looked sympathetic. Some looked amused. Some looked angry that these young humans dared to question the council. "We need time to consider this offer," said finally. Nodded slowly. "You have one rotation of your planet, 24 of your hours. Then you will give us your answer." He waved one long hand. "Take them to the guest quarters." Appeared beside them again. "Follow me." As they walked out of the chamber, whispered to, "They want to use us. They see us as nothing but tools." "I know," whispered back, "but we cannot decide this alone. We must contact Earth." In their guest quarters, they gathered around a secure communication device, sent a message to Earth explaining everything they had learned. Then they waited. The response came 2 hours later. It was from President herself. Her face appeared on the screen, tired but determined. "Admiral," she said, "I have read your report. I have discussed it with the World Council. We have reached a decision." "What is your order, President?" asked. President looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were hard as stone. "You will refuse their offer. Humanity will not be anyone's servant. We would rather stand alone than kneel to anyone." Felt something shift inside him, fear mixed with pride. "Understood, President, and if they threaten us?" "Then we will remind them," President said slowly, "that humans have been fighting against impossible odds since the beginning of our history. We do not surrender. We do not submit. We survive." The screen went dark. Turned to his team. Every face showed the same expression. Fear, yes, but also determination, also pride. "Well," said quietly, "tomorrow will be interesting." Almost smiled. "Yes, it will be." None of them slept that night. They sat together, talking quietly about Earth, about their families, about what the future might bring. Outside their window, the great station hummed with life. Thousands of species living together under the Council's rule. But not humans, never humans. When the 24 hours ended, Admiral put on his uniform, straightened his back, and prepared to shock the entire galaxy. The council chamber was even more crowded than before. Word had spread across the station that the humans would give their answer today. Aliens from every corner of the galaxy had come to watch. Some stood in the hallways because there was no room left inside. Admiral walked toward the central platform with Commander at his side. Their 4 officers followed close behind. The chamber was so quiet that could hear his own heartbeat. High Counselor sat on his throne, looking down at the humans with those cold black eyes. The other 4 High Council members sat beside him, their faces showing nothing. "Humans," said, his voice filling the massive room, "your time has ended. You have considered our generous offer. Now speak your answer." Stopped in the center of the platform. He looked up at. He looked around at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. He took a deep breath. The answer is no. For a moment nothing happened. The silence was so complete that it seemed like time itself had stopped. Then the whispers began. They spread through the chamber like fire through dry grass. Aliens turned to each other, speaking in dozens of languages. Some laughed. Some looked confused. Some looked angry. Raised one hand, and silence returned instantly. Repeat what you said, human. I said no, replied. His voice was clear and strong. Earth refuses your offer of membership. We will not join the Galactic Council under these terms. The whispers exploded into shouts. Several aliens stood up from their seats. Guards around the chamber put their hands on their weapons. Silence, commanded. The room obeyed. He leaned forward, his thin body bending like a snake preparing to strike. You understand what you are saying, human. No species has ever refused the Council. In 10,000 years, every species that has been offered membership has accepted. Then we will be the first to refuse, said simply. Stepped forward. Her voice rang out across the chamber. Your offer was not partnership. It was not friendship. It was not cooperation. Your offer was chains with a pretty name. You asked us to give up our freedom, our resources, our soldiers, our future. And in return, you offered us nothing but the privilege of serving you. More shouts from the crowd. One alien threw something toward the platform, but a guard caught it in midair. We are not servants, continued. We are not slaves. We are human beings. We bow to no one. His expression changed. The calm mask cracked and something dark appeared beneath it. Anger, cold, ancient anger. You are children, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that somehow still reached every corner of the chamber. Your species has existed for a blink of an eye. You have been among the stars for less than a century, and you dare to stand before the Council and speak of what you will and will not do. Age does not make something right, replied. Your Council has existed for 10,000 years. In that time, how many species have you crushed? How many have you used until there was nothing left? How many have you promised equality that never came? Silence again. But this time, some aliens in the crowd were nodding. Some were looking at each other with strange expressions. Some were looking at the High Council with new eyes. Notice this. His anger grew colder. You will regret these words, human. Perhaps, admitted, but we will regret them as free beings, not as slaves. One of the other High Council members spoke. Her name was Lyra, and she belonged to a species that looked almost human except for her silver skin and 4 eyes. Admiral, perhaps there has been a misunderstanding. The terms of membership can be discussed. If certain conditions are too harsh, we can negotiate. Hope flickered in the crowd. Perhaps war could be avoided. Perhaps a solution could be found. But shook his head. With respect, Council Member Lyra, we are not interested in negotiating the terms of our submission. We are interested in being treated as equals from the beginning, nothing less. Impossible, snapped. No new species begins as an equal. This is the foundation of Council law. The strong guide the weak. The old teach the young. This is the natural order. Then your natural order is broken, said, and we will not be part of it. Stood up from his throne. He was very tall, almost 3 meters high, and his shadow fell across the entire platform. Let me be clear about what you are choosing. If you refuse membership, you refuse protection. You refuse trade. You refuse access to technology. You will be alone in a galaxy that does not forgive weakness. We understand, said. And more than that, continued, his voice rising, you will be seen as a threat. A species that rejects the Council is a species that might encourage others to do the same. We cannot allow that. We will not allow that. The meaning was clear. War was threatening war. Felt fear crawling up his spine, but he did not let it show on his face. Is the Council saying that any species that refuses to serve must be destroyed? The Council is saying, replied carefully, that there are consequences for every choice. You have been warned. Laughed, it was not a happy laugh. It was sharp and bitter. So this is the great Galactic Council, the rulers of 1,000 worlds, the keepers of peace and order, and your response to disagreement is to threaten destruction. How noble, how impressive. Several aliens in the crowd made sounds of agreement. The mood in the chamber was shifting. Not everyone agreed with threats. Lyra spoke again. High Counselor, perhaps we should discuss this further before making any declarations. The humans are new to galactic politics. They do not fully understand. We understand perfectly, interrupted. We understand that you see us as weak, as young, as easy to control, but you are wrong. He looked directly at, humanity has survived ice ages. We have survived plagues. We have survived wars that killed millions of our own kind. We have survived everything our universe has thrown at us, and we are still here, still standing, still fighting. He paused. The chamber was completely silent. If you want to threaten us with destruction, go ahead. But know this, we will not go quietly. We will not surrender, and we will make you pay for every inch of ground you try to take from us. Stared at him for a long moment. Then he sat back down on his throne. You have made your choice, human. You will return to your planet. You will tell your people what has happened here, and then the council will decide how to respond. We will leave immediately, said. He turned to go. One more thing, called out, stopped but did not turn around. Your species has courage, I will admit that, but courage alone will not save you. The galaxy is old and dark and full of dangers you cannot imagine. You will learn this soon. Did turn then, he looked at one last time. And you will learn something too. You will learn what happens when you back humans into a corner. It never ends well for anyone, but especially not for those who did the backing. He walked out of the chamber with his head held high, and the others followed. The crowd watched them go in stunned silence. As soon as they were out of sight, let out a long breath. That could have gone better. It could have gone worse, replied. We are still alive. For now. They reached their ship without incident. The station seemed different now. The aliens they passed no longer stared with curiosity. Some stared with hatred, some stared with fear. Some, surprisingly, stared with respect. As the ship pulled away from the station, sat down heavily in his chair. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on him. He had just put all of humanity on a path toward war with the most powerful force in the galaxy. Send a message to Earth, he told his communications officer. A young man named Jun, tell them what happened. Tell them to prepare. Prepare for what, sir? Jun asked. Looked out the window at the shrinking station. For everything. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving the Galactic Council behind. But they all knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. Back on the station, sat alone in his private chamber. His advisors had all gone. The crowds had all left. He sat in the darkness thinking. Humans, such small creatures, such short lives, such limited technology, and yet they had stood before the council and said no. They had looked into the face of galactic power and refused to blink. It was impressive, and it was dangerous. Made his decision. He activated his communication device and spoke to the commander of the council fleet. Begin preparations, he said. We will show the humans what happens to those who defy us. We will teach them the price of their pride. The commander's response was immediate. Yes, High Counselor, the fleet will be ready in 30 rotations. Ended the communication. He looked out his window at the endless stars. You chose this, humans, he whispered to the darkness. Remember that, you chose this. But somewhere deep in his ancient mind, a small voice wondered if he was making a mistake. He pushed that voice away. He had ruled for 1,000 years by crushing any opposition. He would not change now. The galaxy held its breath. War was coming. The news spread across Earth like wildfire. Within hours of Admiral's return, every person on the planet knew what had happened. Humanity had refused the Galactic Council. Humanity had stood up to the most powerful force in the known universe, and now humanity might have to pay the price. Some people were afraid. They filled the streets with protests, demanding that the government apologize to the council. They said that pride was not worth death. They said that serving the council was better than being destroyed by it. But many more people felt something different. They felt pride. They felt anger. They felt a fire burning in their hearts that had been sleeping for a long time. For generations, humans had dreamed of reaching the stars. And now that they had reached them, they discovered that the stars were ruled by tyrants who saw them as nothing but tools to be used. President addressed the world 3 days after his return. She stood on a stage in front of the United Earth government building, facing cameras that would broadcast her words to every corner of the planet and every human colony in space. "My fellow humans," she began. Her voice was calm but strong. "You have all heard what happened at the Galactic Council. You know the choice we faced. Submit and survive as servants or refuse and face the consequences." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "We chose to refuse. Some of you think this was wrong. Some of you are afraid of what comes next. I understand that fear. I share it. But I want you to understand why we made this choice." She took a breath. "Throughout our history, there have always been those who said we should accept chains rather than fight. There have always been those who said survival matters more than freedom, and sometimes they were right. Sometimes the smart choice was to wait, to endure, to survive until a better opportunity came." Her voice hardened. But this was not one of those times. The Council did not offer us a difficult partnership that might improve over time. They offered us permanent subjugation. They offered to take our resources, our soldiers, our labor, and give us almost nothing in return. And they told us this would last for centuries before we could even hope for something better. That is not a partnership. That is slavery. And humanity does not accept slavery. We never have. We never will. Cheers erupted from the crowd around her. The sound was picked up by cameras and broadcast to the world. President raised her hand for silence. "I will not lie to you. The Council has made threats. They have a fleet larger than anything we have ever seen. Their technology is hundreds of years ahead of ours. If they choose to attack us, we will face the greatest challenge in human history." She smiled grimly. "But we will face it together, and we will face it as free people, not as servants begging for mercy." 2 weeks later, the Council's response came. It arrived in the form of a massive fleet that appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 warships, each one larger than any vessel humanity had ever built. They formed a wall of metal and weapons between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Admiral watched them arrive from the command center on Luna Base. Commander stood beside him, her face pale but determined. 300 ships, she said quietly. "We have 47. "Quality over quantity," replied, though his voice lacked confidence. A communication signal came through. Accepted it, and High Counselor's face appeared on the screen. "Admiral," said, his voice was cold and formal, "I hope you have had time to reconsider your position." "Our position has not changed," replied. "What is the meaning of this fleet?" "This fleet is a blockade," explained. "Until humanity accepts Council membership under the original terms, no ship will be allowed to enter or leave your solar system. No trade will be permitted. No communication with other species will be allowed. You are isolated." Felt his stomach drop. A blockade was worse than an attack in some ways. An attack could be fought. A blockade was slow death. "You would starve us into submission?" he asked. "We would give you time to think," replied smoothly. "How long can your species survive without trade? How long before your colonies run out of resources they cannot produce themselves? How long before your people turn against their leaders and demand a different choice?" Stepped forward. "You think isolation will break us? Humans have survived alone for thousands of years. We do not need the galaxy to survive." Lips curled into something that might have been a smile. "That was before you spread across 12 planets. That was before you became dependent on materials that only exist outside your system. That was before your population grew beyond what your own worlds can support." He leaned closer to the camera. "We have studied your species carefully, Commander. We know your weaknesses. We know you need titanium from your outer colonies that Earth cannot provide. We know you need medical supplies that are manufactured on stations outside your system. We know that 3 of your colonies will face food shortages within 6 months without trade." The truth of his words hit like a physical blow. The Council had done their research. They knew exactly how to hurt humanity without firing a single shot. "You have 1 year," continued. 1 year of this blockade. After that, if you have not submitted, we will take more direct action. The choice is yours." The screen went dark. Slammed her fist against the console. 1 year. How are we supposed to survive 1 year of this? Did not answer immediately. He was thinking hard, running through everything he knew about Earth's resources, about the colonies, about humanity's hidden strengths. "We need to call an emergency meeting," he said finally. "The president, the military commanders, the heads of all colonies, everyone." The meeting took place 12 hours later via secure communication. Faces appeared on screens from Earth, from Mars, from stations scattered across the solar system. Everyone looked worried. Everyone looked scared. President spoke first. "You have all seen the blockade. You all know what the Council demands. I want to hear options, all options." A colonel named spoke up from Mars. "We could surrender, accept their terms. Survival is more important than pride." "If we surrender now, we surrender forever," said Governor Min from the outer colonies. "You heard their terms. 500 years as servants at minimum. That is 20 generations of our children living as slaves." "At least they would be alive," argued. "Would they?" asked Admiral. "How many species have the Council used up and thrown away? How many have gone extinct serving their wars and their projects? Survival under the Council is not guaranteed. It might just be a slower death." The debate went back and forth. Some wanted to fight, some wanted to surrender, some wanted to negotiate. No one had a clear solution. Then a new voice joined the conversation. It belonged to a woman named Dr. Bo, the head of Earth's Defense Research Division. She had been silent throughout the meeting. "There is another option," she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her screen. "For the past 30 years, since we first made contact with alien species, we have been preparing for this possibility. We hoped it would never come, but we prepared anyway." President leaned forward. "What are you saying, Dr. Bo?" "I am saying that the Council thinks they know our weaknesses. They think they know our strength, but they only know what we have shown them." Dr. Bo smiled slightly. "They do not know what we have been building in secret." The room went silent. "The Council believes we have 47 warships," Dr. Bo continued. "That is the number we have allowed them to see. The real number is somewhat different." "How different?" asked Admiral. Dr. Bo's smile grew wider. "I think it would be better to show you. Admiral, can you meet me at Luna Bases Section 12 in 2 hours?" Nodded slowly. "I can." "Good, bring Commander, and prepare to have your expectations exceeded." The connection ended. Everyone in the meeting looked at each other with new hope in their eyes. For the first time since the blockade appeared, they felt something other than despair. 2 hours later, and followed Dr. Bo through the deepest levels of Luna Base. They walked down corridors that had never seen before, past security checkpoints that seemed to multiply with every turn. "How long has this section existed?" asked. "Since the base was built," Dr. Bo replied. "It was designed from the beginning to be hidden. Only a handful of people know it exists." They reached a massive door. Dr. Bo placed her hand on a scanner. The door opened slowly. What lay beyond took breath away. It was a cavern, a massive underground space carved from the lunar rock, and filling that space row upon row were ships, warships, thousands of them. "Welcome to Project Phoenix," Dr. Bow said. "The Council thinks we have 47 ships. We have 4,700. Stared at the endless rows of vessels. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. "How?" he whispered. 30 years of secret construction," Dr. Bow explained. "Automated factories, hidden shipyards, every resource we could spare without the galaxy noticing. We always knew this day might come. We always knew we might need to fight." Laughed. It was a sound of pure joy, pure relief, pure defiance. "The Council thinks they have us trapped," she said. "They have no idea what they are facing." Finally found his voice. "When can these ships be ready?" Dr. Bow checked her data pad. "Most are already operational. We can have the full fleet deployed within 1 month." Turned to face the hidden armada. Somewhere out there, the Council's blockade sat smugly in space, waiting for humanity to break. They thought they had won. They were wrong. "Prepare the ships," said. "It is time to show the galaxy what humans are really made of." The month of preparation passed quickly. Every day brought new activity across the solar system. Ships that had been hidden for decades were brought online. Crews that had been training in secret finally learned what they had been training for. Weapons systems that had never been tested in real combat were checked and double-checked. Admiral spent most of his time in the command center on Luna Base, coordinating the massive operation. Commander traveled between stations and ships, inspecting crews and boosting morale. They worked day and night, barely sleeping, driven by the knowledge that everything depended on the next few weeks. Dr. Bow introduced them to the engineers who had built the secret fleet. Chief among them was a quiet man named. He was in his 60s, with gray hair and tired eyes, but when he talked about the ships he had spent his life creating, those eyes came alive with passion. "We started with nothing," explained as he walked through one of the new battleships. 30 years ago, we had barely figured out how to travel between planets. Building a warship seemed impossible. "And yet you did it," said, running his hand along the smooth metal wall. "Thousands of times." Nodded. "We made mistakes, many mistakes. The first ships we built were barely functional. Some exploded during testing. Some fell apart in space. We lost good people learning how to do this right." He stopped in front of a window that looked out over the ship's main weapons array. "But we kept going. We learned from every failure. We improved every design. And now," he gestured at the massive guns, "now we have weapons that can punch through Council armor. We have shields that can take a direct hit from their main cannons. We have engines that can outrun their fastest ships." "How is that possible?" asked. She had joined them halfway through the tour. "The Council has thousands of years of technological advancement on us." "They do," agreed. "But they also have thousands of years of assumptions. They stopped innovating centuries ago because they thought they had reached the peak of what was possible. Their weapons are the same ones they used 500 years ago. Their ships follow the same designs they perfected 1,000 years before that." He smiled slightly. "We had no such limitations. We started from nothing, so we had to invent everything new. And sometimes a fresh perspective sees solutions that experience misses." Felt a new respect for this quiet engineer. "You and your team may have saved humanity." "We have given humanity a chance," replied. "Saving it will be up to people like you." As the days passed, something remarkable happened across human space. The fear that had gripped everyone since the blockade began started to change into something else. Word spread, carefully and secretly, that Earth had a hidden strength. People did not know the details, but they knew something was coming, and that knowledge gave them hope. On colonies that had been rationing food, people worked harder to stretch their supplies. On stations that had been preparing to evacuate, engineers found ways to extend life support systems. Everywhere, Humans dug in and prepared to endure whatever came next. The Council noticed none of this. Their ship sat in their blockade formation, confident and patient. Reports from their spies suggested that Earth was in chaos. Protests filled the streets. Political leaders were fighting among themselves. Surrender was surely coming soon. High Counselor received these reports with satisfaction. Humans are emotional creatures, he told his advisors. They make grand speeches about freedom and dignity, but when faced with real consequences, they always break. Give them a few more months and they will come crawling back to us. His advisors agreed. The blockade was working perfectly. There was no need to risk a military engagement when time would deliver victory on its own. They were still congratulating themselves when the human fleet emerged. It happened everywhere at once. From behind every moon, every asteroid, every piece of floating debris in the solar system, ships appeared. They came from the dark side of Luna. They came from the clouds of Jupiter. They came from the ice fields beyond Neptune. They came from places the Council had never thought to look. The commander of the blockade fleet, an old warrior named, watched his sensors with growing disbelief. "How many ships?" he demanded. "Still counting," his tactical officer replied, his voice shaking. "Current estimate is over 4,000. 4,000, grabbed the officer's console and stared at the numbers himself. "That is impossible. Our intelligence said they had 47. Our intelligence was wrong." Looked out the window of his command ship. The human fleet was spreading across space like a swarm of insects. Small ships, large ships, ships of every size and configuration. They moved with precision, forming battle lines that mirrored the Council's own formations. "Open a channel," ordered. "I want to speak with whoever is commanding that fleet." Admiral's face appeared on the screen moments later. He looked calm, confident, almost amused. "Commander," said, "I believe you wanted to speak with me." "What is the meaning of this?" demanded. "Where did these ships come from?" "They were built here," replied simply. "In secret, over the past 30 years. We always knew this day might come, so we prepared for it." His mind raced. 4,000 ships against his 300. Even with the Council's technological advantage, those odds were devastating. If the humans attacked, his fleet would be destroyed in hours. "You would start a war with the Council?" he asked, trying to buy time. "We are not starting anything," replied. "We are finishing what the Council started when they tried to enslave us, but we are giving you a choice." "A choice?" "Leave, take your fleet and go back to Council space. Tell your masters that Earth is not interested in their membership, but we are willing to live in peace. We will not attack Council worlds. We will not interfere with Council business. We simply want to be left alone to build our own future." Felt his jaw tighten. "And if we refuse?" His expression hardened. "Then we will destroy your fleet, every ship, every escape pod. We will make such an example that no one in the galaxy will ever threaten humanity again." The communication link stayed open, but neither spoke. Looked at his tactical displays. He looked at his officers. He saw the fear in their eyes. "I need to consult with the High Council," he said finally. "You have 1 hour," replied. "After that, we will consider your presence here an act of war." The screen went dark. Back on the Council station, received the news with disbelief. 4,000 ships. Are you certain?" His face on the communication screen was pale. "I have seen them with my own eyes, High Counselor. The humans have been deceiving us from the beginning." Felt something he had not felt in centuries. Doubt. Fear. The emotions he usually inspired in others were now crawling through his own mind. "Attack them," he ordered. "You have the superior technology. You can still win." "With respect, High Counselor, our analysis suggests otherwise. The humans have weapons capable of penetrating our shields. Their engines are faster than ours, and they outnumber us more than 10 to 1. If we attack, we will be destroyed." Slammed his fist against his throne. Then call for reinforcements. The nearest reinforcement fleet is 6 weeks away. The humans will not wait that long. Silence fell across the council chamber. The other High Council members looked at each other nervously. None of them had expected this. None of them had prepared for a species that could actually challenge their power. Lyra spoke carefully. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans have offered peace. They have asked only to be left alone. Perhaps we should accept. Accept, turned on her with fury in his eyes. Accept defeat from these primitives. Let them defy the council and face no consequences. The alternative is losing 300 ships and opening ourselves to further challenges from other species, Lyra replied. Is our pride worth that cost? Wanted to argue. He wanted to order the attack anyway. He wanted to crush these arrogant humans who dared to stand against him. But somewhere deep in his ancient mind, the voice of reason spoke louder than the voice of pride. Withdraw the fleet, he said finally. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. Tell Commander to bring our ships home. The order was sent, received it with obvious relief. He turned his fleet around and began the long journey back to Council space. Admiral watched them go. Beside him laughed softly. They are running, she said. The mighty Galactic Council is running from humans. Nodded, but his expression remained serious. This is not over. They will be back, and next time they will be better prepared. Then we will be better prepared too. A diplomat named appeared on their communication screen. She had been coordinating Earth's message to the rest of the galaxy. Admiral, the Council fleet is retreating. What should we tell the other species? Thought for a moment. Tell them what happened here today. Tell them that humanity refused to kneel. Tell them that we built an entire fleet in secret and drove the Council away without firing a single shot. Tell them that Earth offers friendship to anyone who treats us as equals. He paused. And tell them that anyone who tries to conquer us will face the same fate as this blockade, or worse. Smiled. Understood, Admiral. I will make sure the entire galaxy hears our message. As the Council ships disappeared into the darkness of space, humans across the solar system celebrated. They cheered in the streets of Earth. They raised glasses on the stations of Mars. They shouted in joy on the distant colonies. They had stood against the greatest power in the galaxy, and they had won. But knew the real test was still to come. The Council would not forget this humiliation. They would spend years, decades, maybe centuries planning their revenge. And when they came back, humanity would need to be ready. He looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, new allies waited to be found. New enemies waited to be faced. New challenges waited to be overcome. The universe was vast and dangerous and full of wonders, and for the first time in history, humanity was stepping into it as equals, not as servants, not as slaves, but as a free people with the strength to defend themselves. The future was uncertain, but it was their future to shape. And that made all the difference. 6 months had passed since the blockade retreated. 6 months of change that reshaped the galaxy forever. Admiral stood on the observation deck of Earth's space station, watching ships come and go from dozens of different worlds. Some were human vessels. Some belonged to species he had never seen before. All of them flew peacefully together, trading goods and exchanging knowledge under the banner of a new alliance. The Galactic Council had expected humanity's defiance to be crushed. Instead, it had sparked a fire that spread across the stars. It started small. A few species that had been watching Earth stand with secret admiration began reaching out. First came a small civilization that had been serving the Council for 200 years. They sent a message to Earth asking if the humans meant what they said about treating others as equals. Diplomat handled the negotiation. She spent weeks talking with representatives, learning about their culture, their needs, their fears. In the end, she offered them something the Council never had, a partnership based on mutual benefit with no chains attached. The joined humanities' growing alliance. They brought with them knowledge of mining techniques that improved Earth's resource production by 40%. Then came a warrior species that had grown tired of fighting council wars for no reward. They respected humanity's strength and wanted to stand beside them rather than against them. Commander met with their generals and found common ground. They joined the alliance. They brought military strategies that complemented human tactics perfectly. Then came a dozen more species, then 100. Some were small civilizations with little to offer except their loyalty. Some were larger powers with resources and technology that advanced human science by decades. All of them came because they saw in humanity something they had not found in the Council: respect. Dr. Bo coordinated the exchange of scientific knowledge. Engineer worked with alien engineers to improve ship designs. President became the face of the new alliance, speaking to crowds across multiple worlds about the future they were building together. High Counselor watched all of this with growing fury. "They are building an empire," he told his fellow council members, "right under our noses. Every day more species join their alliance. Every day their power grows." "Perhaps we should have destroyed them when we had the chance," said one of the other council members. "Perhaps you should have offered them fair terms from the beginning," replied Lyra. She had become increasingly critical of leadership since the human crisis began. "Perhaps, if we had treated them as partners instead of servants, none of this would have happened." Turned on her with cold rage. "You blame me for this. You think kindness would have prevented their rebellion." "I think arrogance created it," Lyra said calmly. "And I think the same arrogance is preventing us from finding a solution now." The council chamber erupted into argument. For the first time in centuries, the unity that had held the galaxy together was cracking. On Earth, received reports of the council's internal struggles with cautious optimism. "They are weakening themselves," observed, "fighting among themselves instead of focusing on us." "That is good for now," agreed. "But we cannot depend on their weakness. We need to build our strength." He called a meeting of the Alliance's military commanders. Representatives from 12 different species gathered in a chamber that had been designed to accommodate beings of every shape and size. "The Council will not let this situation continue forever," told them. "They are arguing now, but eventually they will unite against us. We need to be ready." A general named Strong Wind spoke up. "My people are ready to fight. We have been ready for generations." "Fighting should be our last option," said an elder. "We have all lost too much to council wars. We should seek peace if possible." "Peace from a position of strength," added. "We do not beg for peace. We earn it by being too powerful to attack." The discussion continued for hours. In the end, they agreed on a strategy: build defenses that would make invasion impossible, develop weapons that would make war too costly, and always keep the door open for negotiation. 3 years passed. The alliance grew stronger. Human colonies expanded to 30 planets, then 50, then 100. New technologies transformed daily life. Ships that once took months to build were completed in weeks. Diseases that once killed millions were cured. Poverty that once seemed permanent began to fade. And through it all, humans never forgot where they came from. Every child learned the story of the Council's offer and humanity's refusal. Every school taught the history of the blockade and the revelation of the hidden fleet. The message was clear: freedom is never free. It must be earned, protected, and defended. When the Council finally sent a new delegation to Earth, the galaxy held its breath. This time, High Counselor came personally. His ship was escorted by a token force of only 10 vessels, a sign of peace rather than aggression. He landed on Earth's main spaceport and was greeted by Admiral, Commander, and President herself. Had aged visibly in the past 3 years. The confidence that had once radiated from him seemed dimmed, but his eyes still held the sharpness of a being who had ruled for 1,000 years. "Admiral," he said, "we meet again." "High Counselor," replied with a formal nod, "welcome to Earth." They walked together through streets lined with curious crowds. Humans and aliens stood side by side, watching the ancient enemy who had once tried to enslave them. Some faces showed anger, some showed fear, most showed nothing but quiet confidence. The meeting took place in the Great Hall of the United Earth Government. Representatives from every alliance species attended. It was the largest gathering of different civilizations in human history. Stood before them all, looking small and old for the first time anyone could remember. "I have come to make a new offer," he said. His voice echoed through the hall. "The Galactic Council recognizes that our previous approach was misguided. We treated humanity as children to be controlled. We were wrong." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was not what anyone had expected. "We offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council," continued, "with all rights and privileges that entails, equal voting power, equal representation, equal status in every way." President stepped forward, and our alliance partners, the species who stood with us, hesitated. This was clearly not what he had planned to discuss. They can apply for membership individually through the standard process, which means centuries of servitude before they earn full rights, said. "The same offer you gave us originally." "That is the traditional path," replied stiffly. Shook her head. "Then our answer is the same as before, no." Gasps echoed through the hall. Even some of humanity's allies looked shocked. "You refuse," composure cracked. "We offer you everything you asked for and you refuse." "We refuse to abandon our friends," said firmly. "We refuse to accept equality for ourselves while leaving others in chains. If the Council wants humanity, it must take all of us, every species in our alliance, with full and immediate membership." Looked like he had been struck. That is unprecedented. It would require reforming the entire structure of the Council. "Then reform it," said simply. The hall fell silent. Every eye was on. The weight of centuries pressed down on him. He could refuse. He could walk away. He could try one more time to crush these impossible humans. But he was tired, so very tired. "I will present your terms to the Council," he said finally. "I cannot promise they will accept, but I will present them." It took another year of negotiation. Arguments raged across Council space. Some species demanded war. Some demanded compromise. Some demanded that step down and let younger leaders take over. In the end, the reformers won. The Galactic Council was restructured from the ground up. The old system of masters and servants was abolished. Every species, new or old, would have equal rights from the beginning. The 1,000-year hierarchy that had defined galactic civilization came to an end. Admiral attended the ceremony where the new charter was signed. He stood among representatives of hundreds of species, watching as history was made. Beside him, wiped tears from her eyes. She had never thought she would see this day. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." Nodded slowly. Not just us, everyone who stood with us, everyone who believed that things could be different. He looked around at the diverse crowd. Humans and aliens standing together as equals, not because one was stronger than the other, not because one had conquered the other, but because they had chosen to build something better together. A young officer named Jun approached them. He was one of the new generation born after the blockade, raised in a galaxy that was already changing. "Admiral, the President is asking for you. She wants you to say a few words." Laughed softly. "A few words about all of this." "She says you are the best person for it, sir, the one who started everything." Walked to the podium at the center of the great chamber. Every eye turned to him. Representatives of 100 species waited to hear what he would say. He thought about everything that had led to this moment: the Council's arrogant offer, humanity's refusal, the blockade, the hidden fleet, the alliance, the long years of building and fighting and hopping. "When we first came to the stars," he began, "we were told that we were too young, too weak, too small to matter. We were told that our place was to serve, not to lead, to obey, not to question." He paused. The chamber was completely silent. "We said no, not because we wanted conflict, not because we enjoyed fighting. We said no because we believed that every species deserves to choose its own future. We said no because we knew that chains called by nice names are still chains." He looked out at the crowd, at humans, at dozens of species he still barely knew. "Today we stand together as equals, not because we conquered each other, not because we forced each other, but because we found a better way. A way built on respect, on partnership, on the simple truth that no one has the right to enslave another." His voice grew stronger. "This is not the end of our journey. It is only the beginning. There will be challenges ahead. There will be those who want to return to the old ways. There will be conflicts and disagreements and difficult choices." He raised his hand toward the stars visible through the chamber's dome. "But we will face them together, as one galaxy, one people, one future." The cheering started softly, then grew until it shook the walls. Species that had been enemies for centuries stood side by side, celebrating a new beginning. Admiral stepped back from the podium, was waiting for him, smiling through her tears. "Not bad," she said, "for a few words." Smiled back, "I had good material." They walked out of the chamber together, into a galaxy that was finally truly free. Behind them, a new era was beginning, an era shaped by a single word that humanity had dared to speak when everyone expected obedience. No. Sometimes, that was all it took to change everything.